Today's topic is what are the symptoms of a herniated disc and when is it a problem? Now, we've talked a lot about herniated discs, and I'm going to do the anatomy real quick again because to understand the anatomy, you'll actually understand the symptoms because the symptoms come from the anatomy. So head's here, hips here, 24 vertebrae between the head and the hips. The vertebrae are the bones. In between each bone there is a disc. The disc allows for movement of the vertebrae forward, back, side to side. And what happens is the disc will very often herniate from the inside to the outside, and along the way it'll start to pinch the nerves a little bit. So you'll have different symptoms. One of the symptoms will be from the disc, another one of the symptoms will be from the nerve. So it's important to understand that. But it kind of looks like this. Nucleus pushes out, pinches the nerve a little bit. Right here's the herniated disc, but there are different phases of a herniated disc. Very often the nucleus starts on the inside and starts to push out, and then as it migrates out further, it'll start to cause a bulging disc, and then sometimes it tears all the way through. So it's the phases of the herniated disc that very often give you the pain. We're going to do a quick anatomy of the disc. One vertebrae on top of the other. The disc is in between. The disc is like a jelly donut. It's like a jelly donut in the sense that the outside there's a thick material, inside there's a jelly. Now what can happen is this thick material called the annulus can start to tear. And there are little nerve endings right in the outside of the annulus called the sinovertebral nerves. And it's when these nerves get irritated when you start to have back pain. But what can happen is that nucleus can tear all the way through. So as it tears through, it'll get to the point where you'll start to have more severe back pain. Or as you move and shift, the nucleus will move and shift and aggravate those nerves. So it's the tearing in conjunction with these nerves that really start to give you the symptoms. So it's important to understand these nerves right here. Okay? Sometimes it's severe. As it tears through further, when it tears all the way through this section that is highly innervated with nerves, meaning there's a lot of nerves in that area, when it tears through there, it can be very, very, very painful. Okay? But it doesn't always have to cause you a lot of pain. If it's not tearing into this zone, or if it's just at the beginning right here, it's going to cause you an occasional pain. So it's not always severe pain. Okay? Sometimes you'll feel the pop. Patients say they feel the pop. What was the pop? Well, the pop was as it tore all the way through, the nucleus migrated all the way to the outside. That's kind of rare. That's maybe 1 out of 100. Doesn't happen a lot, but you'll feel it sometimes. Sometimes the sitting for long periods of time will start to, the seated position will start to load the back, whether it's too much curve or not enough curve. If you sit sort of laying back like this, what happens is you start to load the disc. And that loading of the disc will start to push back. It'll start to aggravate those nerves that are right along the outside of the annulus. Sometimes a sudden movement. You twist or you get up too fast, or what patients say a lot is, oh, I was sneezing, oh, I felt it, and then I had shooting pain. Sometimes the sneezing is enough to do it. Body positions. Again, the seated position and or leaning over a table. Those will start to add load to the disc, and that disc will then start to push into the area of this nerve ending. Okay? It's all these nerves that tell the brain there's something wrong. When it's healthy like this, everything's fine. But as you start to develop that tear, then it'll start to migrate out here. So you'll start to get those symptoms. So it can be all the time. It can be sometimes. Sometimes you can feel pop. Sometimes it's sneezing. And sometimes the pain happens just like that, depending on how far through the annulus the nucleus tears. Now, there's another set of symptoms that come with the herniated disc, and it's the sciatica symptoms. But this is very, very, very important because this is also sometimes where you start to have some problems that you need to be aware of. Again, we're not trying to give you a diagnosis today. I'm not diagnosing you. I'm trying to give you an education about what can happen. Sciatica is pain that goes down the leg. We've talked about that 1,000 times. We treat a lot of sciatica, pain down the leg. Well, what happens? Why is the pain going down the leg? These nerves that exit through the lowest part of your spine go down the legs. So when that disc is herniated and it's pinching that nerve, you're going to get the pain that goes down the leg. So you get leg pain. Okay, sometimes the leg pain can be worse than the back pain. Sometimes you can only have leg pain. Doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes people say, you know what, I don't have any back pain at all, but I got the shooting pain down my leg. Well, that's still a herniated disc. The herniated disc is pinching the nerve. You'll get the nerve pain. Okay, again, it goes down the leg. Sometimes what happens is you get numbness. Okay, you get numbness in your toes and your feet. Sometimes you can have numbness in the leg. Now, there are 5 different nerves that come out of the base of the spine, and depending on which part of the nerve is being pinched, you may have different symptoms. Again, one of them is a muscle weakness, one of them is a numbness, but what patients say sometimes is they, as I'm walking, my foot drags. Okay, it's called drop foot. Well, drop foot, there's a nerve that's responsible for lifting the foot up. When that nerve is pinched, the foot goes down. That's called drop foot. Another one is, I can't walk on my heels. Although we don't walk on our heels very often, but every once in a while somebody says, I really had a hard time getting my right foot up. Couldn't get my right foot up. What does that mean? It means you have a pinched nerve in your back from the herniated disc. This is one of the symptoms of a herniated disc. Okay? We talked about the foot drop. Sometimes you get the numbness, sometimes you get the achiness. And I've had a couple of patients that say, I only get tingling in my foot. My leg's a little achy, but really the tingling in the foot is the biggest problem. That, again, could be from the herniated disc, because the herniation is pinching the nerve as that nerve exits through the spine. And most importantly, how do you know when it's a problem? Because there are nerves in the lowest part of your back that control your bowel and they control your bladder. So your ability to go to the bathroom sometimes can be compromised, meaning if this nerve is pinched, sometimes you can't go to the bathroom. When you can't go to the bathroom because you have a pinched nerve, that's a medical problem. You gotta go to the emergency room fast, because that's a serious, serious, serious problem. It's called cauda equina syndrome. It's when the herniation is so bad, it just completely pinches the nerve and you cannot control your bowel and your bladder. Okay? We also call it saddle syndrome. Okay, these are technically 2 different problems. Controlling your bladder is not always associated with saddle syndrome, but saddle syndrome is where you get a numbness. And they call it saddle syndrome because it's the same location if you were to sit on a saddle for a horse where you would get some numbness. Okay, if you ride a horse for a long period of time, that's a different kind of problem, but riding a horse could actually cause a herniated disc. But this is when you have a problem. These are serious problems, although I have to say they're very rare. These don't happen a lot. Okay, so let's just do a quick recap. Back pain, sometimes severe, sometimes worse with activities and motion, sometimes worse standing up, sometimes worse sitting down, sometimes better in certain positions, sometimes fast movements make it worse. Sneezing. People say I sneeze, I had intense pain, that's the herniated disc. Okay, pain that goes down the leg. Pain that goes down the leg as the nerve is being pinched in the low back. Could be numbness, could be achiness, could be muscle weakness, depending on which part of the nerve is pinched. Foot drop, foot raise. If you can't raise your foot, that's a problem. If your foot drops all the time, that's a problem. Okay? So, cauda equina syndrome, when you can't control your bowels and your bladders, that's a problem. So if you have this, you need to go to the emergency room, because this is a serious problem. All right, again, this is not a diagnosis. I'm just trying to give you an education about the symptoms. That's all we're going to do for today. I think that was pretty good. I'll talk a little bit about the risk factors. We've had patients 12 years old. Somebody was 12 years old and they were tubing behind a boat, flipped off the tube, herniated disc. So it's trauma induced. Okay? Sometimes multiple traumas. Physically demanding work is a risk factor. Poor posture, wear and tear, we call that life. Sometimes life is enough to cause a herniated disc, all the wear and tear in your spine. So those are the risk factors. If you like what you hear, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our goal is to educate you, help you make better healthcare decisions. You make better healthcare decisions, you have less trouble, you have less pain, and it costs you a lot less money. Follow us on Twitter. We're here for you. We're here to help you. We're here to help you make better healthcare decisions. That's it for tonight. I hope it was helpful. We'll see you tomorrow. If you have any questions, put your comments in the sections where comments are available. Good night.